Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What? Do what?
Let the dogs out. You know, like, ooh, let the dogs out. Ooh, ooh.
Off the Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com. Your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. Always available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Always available wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Welcome to the program. Loaded up today. Chris Landry will join us. As you can see, Caleb Calhoun and Amanda LaFratta are here. So we've got a lot going on as the transfer portal begins to be a real thing. So we will talk about it today, already affecting Tennessee. And should Tennessee look to greener pastures to fill in for possibly a position that could use a little help? That caused a lot of talk over the weekend. I think you know what I'm talking about. That guy takes snaps. So we'll discuss that and more. So with Caleb Calhoun and Amanda LaFratta, I'm Dave Hooker. Good morning, Amanda. How are you?
Good morning, Dave. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well. How about you, Caleb? How's things rocking in your world?
They are amazing. Tremendous, believe me.
Sweet. Love to hear that. All right. So let's go ahead and get to the down and dirty at 30, as there's a lot going on in the transfer portal as it hit high gear yesterday for Tennessee as far as the outflow. The inflow is probably going to take a little bit longer, but the down and dirty at 30 brought to you by Nutrition World. I stopped by Nutrition World just the other day and picked up my supplements, but you can order them online as well. Go to nutritionw.com. That's nutritionw.com. And don't put something into your body that is not perfect for your needs. Don't put something in your body that's not high quality, because that is what can happen at those acronym supplement stores. So go to nutritionw.com, nutritionw.com, and they will take care of you. All right, Caleb. So they say you win with the Jimmies and Joes. A couple of Jimmies are out the door. And that would be Jimmy. That would be Jimmy Holiday and Jimmy Callaway.
All right.
They enter the transfer portal, and for those that don't know, here the way the rules work: you enter the transfer portal, you can evaluate other schools. However, you can come back to your original school, but the original school doesn't have to hold the scholarship. So you're kind of gambling a little bit that somebody else, which is so weird to me to put on an 18, 19, 20-year-old guy. But anyway, so Jimmy Callaway, Jimmy Holiday have entered the transfer portal. A couple of running backs too. But Caleb, first, let me get your thoughts on the impact of both guys. And really, I think the signal that is being sent by the program and their announcements. You go.
So they were actually a little bit different, even though they both play wide receiver. I think Jimmy Holiday's makes a little more sense. I think the emergence of Squirrel White just made it, and then D. Williams taking over punt returning too. I think that just made it effectively. There was no room for Jimmy Holiday. There's, he's a junior. I think he's got 2 years of eligibility left. And with Squirrel White emerging, the type of role Jimmy Holiday would play, he's just never going to play at Tennessee. Now, Jimmy Callaway threw me off a little bit because even though he's been there 2 years, Cedric Tillman is going to be gone after this year. He's gone. Jalen Hyatt's probably going to the pros too. So there was definitely probably an opening in the slot for a guy like Jimmy Callaway. Even if Ramel Keaton and Brew McCoy are back on the outside. And so that one I was a little bit more shocked by, but I mean, I guess I kind of understand with them. Again, Squirrel White had emerged so much in the slot too for Tennessee at receiver that Jimmy Callaway probably was just like, there's no spot for me there's no room for me to become a starter. So I'm going to look elsewhere. I thought I don't want to judge players too harshly whenever they do anything. Holidays made sense. I think Callaway ducked competition a little bit.
I do too. I completely do. And I think Squirrel White's the most exciting player on this entire team. You want to know why I think so? Because I think for the first time they didn't have Bayless Jones at that slot receiver position for just 1 year. They had him for 1 year. They didn't have time to really prepare him. I thought that Jalen Hyatt, they had really for one off season because he admitted that he came into last season with a poor attitude. I think Squirrel White at that slot receiver gets really scary and gets really interesting with 2 or 3 years to prepare for him. I think there's more things you can do with him. So I was surprised by the latter, as you mentioned, the latter, Jimmy. And I think there is some ducking of competition. I think it sends a statement, Amanda, that this football team is going to be aggressive in the transfer portal. And I think there may have been a quiet message made, just like there was in recruiting with the Stallings kid when they went to Khalifa Keith, that, hey, buddy, we really appreciate you. I just don't know if there's going to be much of a role for you. I think those sorts of conversations happen.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And I think that Tennessee is going to be a strong contender in the transfer portal and one that a lot of players out there are going to want to go for. I mean, if you're an offensive player and you want recognition, this is the offense you want to play in. So I think that Heupel, I'm not saying this is what's happening, but behind the scenes going, hey, maybe you're a better fit elsewhere because you're not going to be up to the standard. And I don't think that's wrong because this is real life, everybody. This is what happens in the real world. So even if these kids are 18 to 22 and they have the option to go elsewhere and to look at other places, I think that schools and coaches and programs should have the option to say, hey, you don't really fit very well here. You're not going to get any playing time. Here's the honest truth. Transfer out.
Yes. So they have 4 that have intend to enter the transfer portal. Let me clarify on that. So, so you have 2 others in Linmeth Whitehead, who I was a little surprised by because I thought that I'd heard good things in the preseason before the preseason injury, Caleb. And then Justin Williams-Thomas. What are your take on those 2?
Yeah, I was honestly surprised by both. That was Linmeth Whitehead. I think there's something there, but we were just talking about Khalifa Keith and Will Stallings. Do we wonder if the coaches are so high on Khalifa Keith that they don't think that they're, because that he plays a similar role to Whitehead in terms of that, big physical power back almost. I'm not comparing them, guys. Don't accuse me of this, but the Derrick Henry profile of a back. Not that he's going to be as good as Derrick Henry. I'm saying, but he fits that type of profile, which Linmeth Whitehead did. And maybe they see something in Khalifa Keith. Again, Justin Williams-Thomas, that the emergence of Dylan Sampson early may have had an impact on his psyche, but at the same time, Jabari Small's a junior, Jalen Wright's a sophomore. And maybe he got impatient and wanted to play early and went elsewhere. I mean, which anybody who knows the history of Tennessee football, running back is a position you wait your turn to play at Tennessee. That's always been the rule with Tennessee. And if you wait your turn, you can end up having a great season. Look at Travis Stevens, 2001. And so
I view those guys, Caleb, in 2 very different ways. I'm sorry if I interrupted you. I view those guys in 2 different ways. The Linmeth Whitehead was supposed to be like the power back, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think they go out and they get Khalifa Keith to be that power back. I think that they find a Princeton Fant who sort of filled that role for the time being. But yes, that one really surprises me. He's essentially going against a freshman for the power back role that Princeton Fant was so successful in. If you want to say that fullback type of role, I don't know that's exact position, but they need a power back with 2 guys that are kind of slight at the running back position now. But the one that I think is clearly, Amanda, a situation of I'm going to bounce and not tough it out is Justin Williams. Justin Williams-Thomas, excuse me. I always want to say JTT. Justin Williams-Thomas. I think that is clearly a situation where he doesn't want to play the competition game. And if that's the case, go. Because when you talk from a physical perspective, he's as incredible of a specimen on the team as there is. And I don't think he picked up pass pro from what I was told. And listen, if you don't want to do that, that's a big part of this offense. Maybe you should go find an I formation team if there is one in the nation and just run the football and be a running back, because you got to be able to play pass pro in this offense.
Well, I think that's a given. But to be fair, maybe he doesn't want to sit behind a bunch of people, and I don't think that that's necessarily wrong. If we're going to open this transfer portal up and let people do what they want and go wherever they want, then maybe there is a better fit for him somewhere else. Maybe he doesn't fit in this offense, and he realizes that and he wants to go. Now, with Whitehead, I thought he was already in the transfer portal. I thought when he got injured or whatever, that he was gone, that he made that known a long time ago.
I don't believe he's made it known. And by the way, they can't actually enter the portal till the 5th. They've all announced that they intend to. So John pointed that out. So to clarify, so they can enter the portal by the 5th, and they've all announced that they plan to do so. So I hadn't heard, Caleb, of him doing so beforehand. Have you?
No, I haven't either. There were quite a few players during the Pruitt and at the start of the Heupel era that entered the transfer portal and came back. So I'm not. My mind gets a little hazy on which ones did what. I know Karak Arlen was one of those players. I'm not sure who else. So don't quote me on it. And then I am a little. It is a little confusing because 2 other power backs from Tennessee did enter the portal, in T. Hodge and D. Beckwith last year. I thought they entered the portal because of Lynette Whitehead. They didn't think they could beat him out as the power back. So we'll kind of see how this goes. I mean, but you're right. I'm with both of you. It was shocking. Well, I'm with you, Dave. I don't know why he would enter with his only competition being Khalifa Keith this year. Princeton Fant's gone.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and unless the coaches have maybe told him, look, we're all in on Khalifa Keith, but I don't think the coaches would do that. You want 2 at every position, so you'd love 2 power backs. So I don't know how this is going. What I will say is that, on a macro scale, we're talking about the portal and, the gamble you take. I got to be honest, guys. I think we're going to see a resurfacing of the old argument Derek Dooley tried to make in 2011 that I thought was an awful proposal he had. But you might see coaches make a case for this now, which is to say that if players can enter the portal at whim, we should be allowed to not have to honor scholarships on a yearly basis if they don't perform to how we want. And you might see some coaches fight for that rule.
They don't. I mean, that's rarely done. They don't have to. A scholarship on the college's side is year to year. So, I mean, you can tell a guy that he's just not good enough and you're not going to honor a scholarship. Now, that is highly frowned upon and that will kill you in recruiting. So it's not done often. But I want to remind everybody, if these guys actually enter the portal on the 5th and they've announced publicly their intentions to do that, so I don't see why they would change their mind between now and then. But you have to consider the fact that this Tennessee football team is one that's going to be aggressive in the portal as well. And maybe they know that, and maybe they've been, as Amanda said, given little hints. Now, once they enter the portal, there might be 1 or 2 of these guys that Tennessee tries to talk out of it. But once you enter the portal, as I pointed out before, you do not have to hold their scholarship. Once they enter that portal, you don't have to enter the scholarship as of that moment. So you can let people go even sooner than after a year. So we appreciate you being on board. Please hit the like button. The like button opens things up for more viewers, and we're pushing at 1,500. So hit subscribe. We'd greatly appreciate that. And always share, tell your friends. That is simply awesome. So out of this group, Caleb, if they all leave, this 4, which are the biggest blows? Which one is the one that you say, man, Tennessee really could have used him in 2023? Or could have used him for the next 3 years? You pick.
I'm not sure any of them are the biggest, but because none of them seem like that significant. But for 2023 directly, I'm going to say Lynette Whitehead, because now the Vols again are back to 1 power back and he's a freshman. And if Khalifa Keith gets hurt, they're they don't have a Princeton fan to fill that role. So I would say Lenneth Whitehead. Long term, I would probably say Justin Williams-Thomas.
Me too.
And so because we thought he could be an elite back. You're right. You pick up pass protection in 2 years, you could be the feature back for Tennessee. Because I think we all are fans of Dylan Sampson here. I don't think any of us think Dylan Sampson can be the guy to carry the ball like 20 to 25 times a game. And so I think that's a big loss. Jimmy Holiday. I think Jimmy Callaway could have played at Tennessee if he fought for competition, but let's be honest, Tennessee's loaded at receiver. We're forgetting, because of the players who stood out this year, how deep Tennessee goes at that position. And so I think that's fine.
So who all do you think Tennessee leans on in receiver next year? Obviously, Squirrel, Brew. Who else? Who are the main?
Ramel Keaton's coming back.
Keaton. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I've got the top three, but I'm going deeper than that.
Then if you're going to go a little deeper, like you got Caleb Webb, Cameron Miller, Chaz Nimrod. Those are three guys that were all 4-stars, fringe 4-stars last year. They were buried in the depth chart this year just because of how deep Tennessee went. But I think you could see Tennessee rely on all of them. It's a little bit next year. So I think that, I think Cameron Miller will probably be the one. I think that's his name, right? Cameron Miller. I'm pretty sure that was his name. He'll probably be the one to back up Squirrel White in the slot. He's more of a he is a little more of a physical receiver, but I think that although he did move to defensive back, didn't he, at the beginning of this year? So
I think what this speaks to is that they're all the transfer portal is going to be very active for Tennessee. Very, very active. And I think people going out and going in are going to be something that we're going to see. And again, the Down and Dirty brought to you by Nutrition World, nutritionw.com. I remind you to go there and order your supplements. They are fantastic. And Zool Beer Company, xulbeer.com, is the official craft beer of Off the Hook Sports. And now it's time for today's tough question, which is brought to you by Andy Mason Real Estate. Go to andymasonrealestate.com.
We do our research. Have you done your research?
We're working like heck.
Today's tough question. What's the real debate?
You sipping my soupe, Guadalupe?
Exclusively on Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker and Amanda LaFratta.
You drinking my sake, Kimosabi?
Oh, my God.
All right, today's tough question is brought to you by AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Over 40 years of experience, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. That's all you got to go to, and you will not lose thousands or tens of thousands of dollars if you go to AndyMasonRealEstate.com, because they've got over 40 years of experience, best service and best prices. I kid you not. I've used them several times. Best service, best prices in the biz in the Knoxville area. So AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Today's tough question. If you're Tennessee, do you look at other quarterbacks in the transfer portal? Because here's what we know. Caleb, you have been high on what you've heard in Taven Jackson. I've heard similar things about Taven Jackson, but he did not play against Vanderbilt. That could be one of two things. That could be he's not ready, or that could be you don't want to send Nico the wrong message right before signing day, quite frankly. Or it could just be that Joe Milton is by far the next best guy. No question about it after Hendon Hooker. So Joe Milton has accuracy issues. I'm not just basing that off the rain in Vanderbilt. We've seen it before. So Joe Milton would be a natural transition, being an upperclassman, to get you to Nico. But my question is he good enough to play this upcoming year? Nico still looks incredibly thin to me. And yes, John, I know Jackson had a collarbone issue. But I'm still a little surprised that we haven't heard more, or maybe we will hear more in the bowl game from Taven Jackson. So, Caleb, I ask you this question. If you're Tennessee, are you active? Volunteer 77 says, abso-freaking-lutely. Are you active in finding a quarterback in the portal this year. So how do you want to break down the question, Amanda? You're better at this than me.
It's already broken down. So, should Tennessee target a QB in the transfer portal? No, Milton is the answer. No, we got our guy. Sure, why not? And yes, we need better.
Okay, I would go yes, we need better based off that. Caleb, how about you?
I would go, and first of all, I want to apologize. Walker Merrill was the other receiver I was thinking of. Apologies to Walker Merrill. He's going to back up Squirrel Light.
Right.
Wanted to get that out. I would go, yeah, sure, why not? Only because I think you can always upgrade in the portal. I think the only thing that kind of holds me back a little bit is you got two quarterbacks coming in, and the team, there's a chemistry issue. The team likes Joe Milton. I agree. I don't know if he's cut out for next year to start the whole year, but the team really does respect him. And so,
Gage says no, Nico is going to take over next year. I understand that people want that to happen. That just doesn't happen a lot. You do not see a lot of quarterbacks come in and take over. Maybe he is that good. Maybe Arch Manning will do the same thing at Texas because they're the two most highest rated quarterbacks. Maybe. But Amanda, I mean, there are just not a lot of quarterbacks that step into the SEC and are ready to play. And I don't know how many highlights you've seen of Nico, but he could eat a sandwich or two. I mean, he's pretty light.
Yeah, and I don't think we should count that against him, but also there's a difference
He's
between
17.
Yeah, there's a difference between 17 and 20. So I think that you don't want, if you can help not starting, it's just like in the NFL, if you can help not starting the rookie and letting him sit for a year, that's what you want to do in college. You don't want to immediately stick him in there unless he's huge like Tim Tebow or something, because you don't want him hurt. And if he can sit behind and maybe, go in a game where you're just killing somebody like an Akron or something like that, and get the snaps in that way, then I think that's the best option for you. So I would not go, okay, let's throw it all on Nico his first year in, because I think that is a recipe more often than not for disaster.
Caleb, here's the other question. Whoever those corporate sponsors are that said, hey, Nico, here's $8 million if you believe the reports, at what point do they start to put pressure on the university to play him?
Particularly with the university going all in on NIL deals. I mean, that's its own issue. I would say I don't think that'll have as much of an impact next year, because I think Heupel could probably say, hey, to the donors, guys, he's our quarterback for the future. I do think that's a factor, though. I think that's a factor very similar to back in the day, in the 50s and the 60s when, people whose kids, legacy parents, this was very common back then, had their kids playing at the university and was like, I expect my kid to start for this game and that game. And you're kind of returning to that. But yes, that money situation will be an issue in the future. But Heupel, if you have guts and you're the coach and you run the program, you say, hey, I run this program. I'm sorry that you gave him $8 million. I'm still going to make my decisions based on who's the best player, and you got to make your investments smarter.
Yeah. Gage says Trevor Lawrence came in and started. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible, Gage. I'm just saying that the odds, wouldn't we all agree that the odds are that you're not going to come in and start day one?
Yeah, I mean, and Trevor Lawrence is a little bit of a different kind of quarterback than I think Nico is. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is pretty.
He was considered a once in a generational.
Yeah.
Type of talent.
Yeah,
and go ahead.
It depends on the quarterback psyche. There are some who it works if you throw them to the wolves, and some who need to sit. Going the NFL route, I think Aaron Rodgers needed to sit, because I know a lot of stories where Aaron Rodgers wasn't. Chris Landry could talk about this, funny enough, but Aaron Rodgers wasn't coached to play quarterback the proper way at Cal under Jeff Tedford. And so they actually had to rework his footwork, and they actually had to send him to camp. So he needed like 3 years. Peyton Manning was polished. You throw him to the wolves because you trust that he is mentally tough enough to handle it. And so the Colts in 98, threw him to the Wolves, and they were like, let's let him play horrible. And
Well,
he played horrible.
Yeah, he broke the record for most interceptions in a season.
Yeah.
Oh, that was they threw him to the Wolves. I'll give you another one they threw to the Wolves was Troy Aikman. And there's a similarity here. I remember John Madden saying during a game late in the season, said, man, this Aikman guy can be good if he's just not beat up all the bleep by the end of the year, because they had no offensive line. Tennessee is rebuilding an offensive line. So you could always use that argument if you get any pressure from corporate sponsors. And man, I hope that's not the case. I hate that we're even having this conversation about corporate sponsors, but you could always use the argument to Nico's family or Nico's sponsors or whoever they are and say, listen, he is a guy that is great, needs to put on some weight, and the offensive line has been rebuilt. But when I watch him play, he just looks incredibly thin to me. That would be my biggest concern.
Well, and also the SEC defenses and the ACC defenses are completely different. So you're putting out, this quarterback who's thin, and you have Georgia's, linebackers and Alabama's linebackers and all of these other big dudes that are coming to smash his face. And Trevor Lawrence,
everything else, and his concave chest.
Yes, and everything else. So Trevor Lawrence didn't really face those types of defenses unless it was in the playoff. I mean, his freshman year, he doesn't have to worry about that until he's in the playoff.
And you're right. In a playoff, anybody can prepare for one playoff game. It's can you do it week in and week out.
Yeah. John's saying Nico is coming in early. How much weight could he put on in 8 months? I bet it's already started. I bet the guys, West Coast time as we're live now, it's about 6 o'clock in the morning. I bet he has already have 4 eggs. I'm guessing. I mean, I would already be on. If I were him, you have 4 eggs before you lift, and then you lift, and you come back and you have a full breakfast if you want to add weight. So I'm guessing that he has already started that. How much weight could he put on in an off season? Really, really good weight. 10 pounds, 12.
I'd say 20.
20?
If he hits the weight room, if he tries to build muscle mass, then 20. Muscle weighs more than fat, so.
Yeah, but man, I don't know that you can pull in that many calories when you're out there burning calories, throwing the football in drills. That would be my concern.
Make him do less cardio and make him put on more weight.
That seems like a lot, man. If you got to 15, if you could guarantee 15 right now, I'd take it. Gage said also Bryce Young's high school coach, who's Nico's coach, said the level where Nico is at is just impressive as Young at that team down south. But Bryce Young didn't start his freshman year. So, I mean, that kind of speaks to my point. And if he's anywhere close to as good as Bryce Young, he'll be just fine. So we're going to get joined by Chris Landry here momentarily. Hang with us. I want to remind you that Guardian Investment Advisors is, nowadays with video teleconferencing, you don't have to just go with your buddy as your investment advisor. You can go with Guardian Investment Advisors, and they're one of the best, and they'll take care of you when it comes to placing your money in the right spot. They'll make sure that you are educated as to where that money is going. Go to GIAplantoday.com, GIAplantoday.com. Guardian Investment Advisors, Chris Landry, up next in Sports.
Has risen to the highest level in over 40 years, according to the April 2022 U.S. inflation calculator. Will your investments provide you the income you need in retirement? Are you losing purchasing power of your savings due to inflation? Simply stated, if the cost of goods and services are 8% higher and you're only earning 4% in your investments, that money buys you less of what you need. Right now is the time to act. Call Guardian Investment Advisors today.
Hey folks, Gary Viles here. I want to personally invite you to North Knoxville's newest sports bar and restaurant. It's Big Orange Phillies, located in Black Oak Center. And yes folks, it's happening in Halls. Big Orange Phillies offers family-friendly environment with homemade meals and the best deli-style subs around. billiards, darts, jukebox, shuffleboard, and cornhole, and a full bar. We also offer valet parking on weekends and during special events. We even have a covered back patio. It's happening at Big Orange Phillies. We want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
This is Al's Dish Barbecue Supply, so come on in and see all the different rubs and sauces we have, plus the complete line of Green Mountain grills. Don't be overwhelmed. We have plenty of help, so you can produce the best barbecue and amaze your family and friends. Barbecue is America's food. We'll do what we can to bring you all the best products. We're Al's Nest Barbecue, where Chattanooga goes to grill.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Welcome back. We're going to see how we can work this out. What happens if we bring in a fourth member of the panel? Should be fun. Brought to you by Zach England of Best and Brock. Zach England is the best personal injury attorney in the Chattanooga area. Zach England is phenomenal. He can battle those insurance attorneys head to head, and he will win. And he will get you the proper compensation for your personal injury issues. Chris Landry of LandryFootball.com joins us now. We'll see where. Oh, look, we got the 4-screen. It worked. I had no idea if that was going to work, Chris. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Probably be better if you just X'd out me and cover my old ugly mug. But
That's
good
right.
morning, everybody.
Yeah,
how you guys doing?
Well, if we crossed out the ugly people, it would just be Amanda and Caleb.
Yeah, no, that's right.
It'd be you just talking from space somewhere.
That's right. That's right. No, good point.
Hey, Amanda brought up a great question right before the break, and that was, how much weight can you expect a guy to put on from his senior year, keeping in mind that Nico Iamaleva is going to enroll as a midterm enrollee? So how much weight can you expect him to put on? Because when I watch him, he's pretty light, which isn't unusual. It's not a knock, but he's pretty light. And how much weight could you expect a guy to realistically put on in the offseason?
Depends upon his frame. There are two things you look: the width of your shoulders and the thickness of your wrists are good indicators of how much weight you can put on. I mean, you can be somebody that's bulked out and be 185 pounds, and anything more than that is going to be fat and slow. You want to be at the weight where you can still be the quickest. So the answer to that, I have not seen Nico in person, but that's how we do it. We always look at it. I'm going to tell you this though. Over the years, it's changed. They're better at putting on weight, good weight, than ever before. The nutrition supplements, the workout regimens. So in other words, that answer to that question was one thing on a specific person in 1982 in my first draft versus 92 versus 2002 versus 2012. They're getting bigger and bigger, and a lot of it just has to do with the natural growth, and quite frankly, just women are healthier when they have babies. And so the structure and the bone structure tells you an awful lot. That's what it really is. It's about your bone structure, your height, your width of your shoulders, bone structure, big important factor. So that doesn't answer specifically because it's going to be individual to the player.
Yeah, and I wonder too, how you factor in decisions. And I mean, I want you to jump in here after this, but I wonder too how you factor in decisions about whether or not to play a true freshman when you have a rebuilt offensive line as Tennessee's going to have next year, and how much all of those factors play into it. Or is it simply, hey, this guy may be skinny, but he's the best player right now, throw him out there?
Well, I think again, it's in a general sense, you'd like to have a guy to have a little bit more experience. If you don't have, let's say you've got an inexperienced offensive line, it helps better if you've got not inexperienced at all the positions. That's a general sense. But what are your other options? Are the other options better? I mean, it comes down to that is what can you do at each position to get the best guy on the field? Now, if the young guy in college or the NFL, my experience is if they're not ready, it's more about whether they not smart, intelligence, but do they know what they're doing? Because if you don't know what you're doing and you put them out on the field, you're not going to learn until you get out in the field. Not true. There's a lot of things that you need to learn before you can get on the field. And then once you've not mastered, but once you've had a strong grasp of what you're supposed to do in the classroom setting, on the chalkboard, and then you take it out to practice, then at that point, you can take it to the game. Then you need to see the game reps. But if you don't go through the first two steps, then all you're doing is just you're freelance, and what you're doing is ingraining mistakes. And practice doesn't make perfect; it makes permanent. So if you don't know what you're doing, then you're getting out on the field. You're just regressing to just being an athlete. And there's some cases where that's all somebody has, but I would say that you determine this through practice. And if you're struggling to make good decisions in practice and seeing things correctly in practice, regardless of the position, then it's really normally not a good idea to put them on the field. But you have to have better options. I always say you got to get 11 out in the field. Sometimes you can get away with, like for example, you can get away with a corner that has less experience, but you better not have a safety. You can get away with a pass rusher, an outside linebacker, but you better not have an inside linebacker that's inexperienced. You might be able to get away with an offensive tackle that is less experienced, but you better not have a center or a guard that is struggling to understand things. The closer you are to the ball, the tougher it is to know what to do schematically and assignment-wise. So that's a good rule of thumb to use, but then you got to factor in everything specific to your team.
Gotcha.
So Tennessee has obviously more names are dropping about who's going into the transfer portal, just like it is everywhere around the nation. Who do you expect Tennessee to target, or what kind of player are you expecting Tennessee to really go after in this transfer portal?
Well, I think it depends, and you're right. Everybody's doing it, and let's keep in mind that it's a two-way street. That not all the players are leaving on their own. I don't have no way I could have a percentage on it. But around the country, what I'm noticing is players are leaving because they want to leave, and some of them are being shown the door. Once this transfer portal, look, and it's not like you're done, goodbye. It's, look, this is where your situation is. And be glad to try to help you somewhere else or whatever. And in this essence, they want to use your scholarship somewhere else.
Yes.
So that's the bad side. Oh, let them transfer. Yeah. Well, you do that, then you're no longer we made a mistake in recruiting. You got a scholarship for 4 years, and most of the time they end up, no disrespect, but it's at a smaller school, and there's a lot more guys in the portal than find jobs. I think it really depends upon where their weak spots are. They lose guys, they lose them for a reason. Either they're leaving because they're not playing, or they're not happy, or they're moving up. So I think you got to look at that. I think you also have to look at who you're gonna lose, just in terms of classification, who's moving on. In general, I mean, I think they need defensive help. I think impact players on defense. But this is going to be a pretty decent rebuild for Tennessee in a lot of areas. So I think they're going to need quite a few guys. I do think the receiver room is pretty good, but adding somebody with some experience, I think, is going to be important in a lot of positions for Tennessee, as it will be for a lot of players. So what's happening now is it's hard to look at rosters. I mean, I can look at rosters and say, I think this is where the biggest needs are, but that's going to change. And so I think that's going to really dictate kind of where they're going to go. I did something on LandryFootball.com talking about some of the best players that I think are going to have impacts that have entered the transfer portal, or it looks like they're going to impact, but not all of them are going to be fit for everybody. So I think it's going to be a wait and see proposition.
I want Caleb to jump in here. First, I want to remind everybody that Chris's appearance brought to you in part by Vols Automotive Group on Callahan in Knoxville. There's no other place to go to purchase a car. Vols Automotive Group is phenomenal, and Vols Automotive Group has car selection, and they want, they need, they appreciate your business, and they understand that honesty is so important. That's why you get the best deal, and an honest deal with integrity, and you'll get the best service with the service department there as well. Caleb?
Chris, we were talking before you came on about going back to the Nico story, throwing quarterbacks to the Wolves too early, because there's obviously mixed results depending on how good they are, whether it be college or NFL. We were talking about Peyton Manning and Troy Aikman. Worked out perfectly for them starting as rookies because as bad as they played, they learned from it and they were mentally tough. Seems like it wrecked somebody like Ryan Leaf. And then one of the things I wanted to throw in, I wanted to know your thoughts. Sometimes I think starting early and having success early can actually work against you, because when you don't learn as much, by the time coordinators adjust to you, you don't feel like you need to do as much. I think something like Eric Ainge in 2004 to 2005, having such a successful true freshman campaign with Tennessee. What are your thoughts on all the different ways it could go?
Well, it is individual. So like Peyton and Troy Aikman Peyton just had the record for the most interceptions, and everybody was saying it was just awful. Well, he was a mentally tough guy. Now Ryan Leaf, God bless him, he had a lot of issues. So if he had started, he had sit. If he had sat, he was headed down a bad path anyway. I don't think starting the first year hurt him. In fact, I remember because it happened. I was with the Titans, and we played the Chargers and Ryan Leaf, and he played very well against us. And there was no question. Everybody in the media, well, it's clearly Ryan Leaf, and it's not even close. Look at Peyton Manning. He's struggling. He's awful. Ryan Leaf, we all knew it. Peyton Manning, if his last name was Peyton Mann, he wouldn't be, it was all Ryan Leaf. Well, how'd that turn out? Rick Meyer was a rookie of the year in the league, and he struggled after that. I think there's a lot of things that go. First thing is, and I had Steve McNair. Steve wasn't ready, but Steve wasn't ready because he ran in such an unsophisticated offense in college, where it took us a full week in our first minicamp for him to execute the quarterback center exchange. Now, today, there are a number of guys that come in that don't know how to take quarterbacks. I mean, everything's shotgun. But what we were going to do, that was a problem. So it was to throw him in there, and we played him in preseason, whatever. So we had a veteran. We understood that going in. So we had a veteran quarterback. We had Chris Chandler, and then we had Dave Craig. So we brought him along slowly. Again, I think it's individual. And Steve had mental toughness and physical toughness, but he just wasn't ready, and he needed to learn. He needed to learn more. Peyton was a very good learner and a fast learner, and he picked things up quickly. But if he wasn't mentally tough, it could have shell-shocked. I mean, one guy that I thought it was shell-shocked was David Carr.
David Carr. I was going to pick another one, Patrick Ramsey, how Steve Spurrier.
Oh, yeah.
Remember him? Steve ran 5 wide, and poor Patrick Ramsey, it felt like he took the snap and got in the fetal position before the rush was even there.
No, absolutely. And then you got just the complete just getting beaten up, and you hope you survive physically. Now, in today's game, that's not as big of a deal because they don't allow you to hit a guy as much unless you're a running quarterback. So again, it is. There's no way on the outside you look and say, well, this is what they should do. You really have to know the player. I mean, intimately, you got to know the player. You got to know what makes him tick. You got to know how he responds. Some guys go in a shell when they struggle, and then you got to build them up, and it's a constant building up. Other guys learn quickly from the mistake and are challenged. I want to get in there. That's part of one aspect of mental toughness. So yeah, you can throw a guy into the wolves. What are your other options? I know that. So I had good friends with Jim Moore, a senior, and and they had Peyton as a rookie. He coached him as a rookie, and he said the plan was to start him. He says, but we didn't have it. If you remember that, they didn't have any other options. I mean, that was it. They didn't have any other options to really go to. But I think that going in, and in college, it's the same way. I think today in general, though, because of the oversimplification of the offense with a lot of the zone read stuff that's over reliant on the RPO game, I think you can, in general, start a quarterback quicker if he's physically ready and make all the throws, what have you. He's athletic. I think you can, in general, start a guy quicker. I think you can start a guy. Well, in the NFL, you got to start him quicker because you got to get to know in the first 4 years or 5 years if he's drafted in the first round whether you got something and you sign him a long-term deal or you got to move on. So you can't waste a year. So normally you're going to start the guy pretty early in the NFL. In college, I think you can because of the proliferation of the zone read stuff and the RPO stuff in high school. I think it's an easier transition. When you went from more pro style in the NFL, in college football rather, then that was always completely different. A lot in high school was a lot of option stuff and in the 70s, and so it took a while for guys to sit. But it's a different world, and I think today, back then, you'd have to, much like the NFL, you got to know quickly. In college, what you got to do today is you got to be careful. So let's just say if you got a guy and he's mentally tough and you don't play him, I mean, like you wonder what's going to happen at Texas. Now, I think, Quinn Ewers is, likely, he's progressing nicely. And I think that, the word is Arch Manning is willing to redshirt. But he's kind of from old school, from kind of how his uncles and his dad and all come back. But most guys, let's say Nico doesn't win it and he's not happy. Well, in college, what you have to do is you have to try to get them started, get them on the field as quick as possible. Because if you don't, then they might go into the portal or they might get disenchanted. Now you got to throw in different things. What's his NIL deal? I mean, he might play really well and, he might get a better NIL deal somewhere else. And not anybody specific, but just in general. So a lot of it is you got to try to get a guy on the field earlier now. So I think that's a factor. Are they ready or not? Don't know. But I think you got to adjust your system to get the best playmakers on the field. And I think quarterback's a part of it. And I think that the progression of what they run in high school to college to the NFL is more seamless than it ever has been.
Please hit that like button, the thumbs up button. It opens us up to more people. We greatly appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, and I was looking at the analytics, only 20% of our regular viewers subscribe. So please subscribe, but be sure and hit that like button. We appreciate that because it alerts more people that we're out there, and turn your notifications on. We've got a lot of big things coming down the pike. I think you can already see that right now. So Chris's appearance brought to you in part by Bassey Lawn and Garden. Man alive, it's worth the drive in Cleveland. Whether you're in Nashville, Knoxville, or Chattanooga, we're talking about industrial mowers. We're talking about commercial mowers and residential lawn supplies that will take care of you. Bassey Lawn and Garden. Man alive, it's worth the drive. Amanda?
So we're looking at this transfer portal and how, as a coach, can you get, not past it? Or, how can you use it to your advantage and it not hurt your team? Because I don't see how bringing in players and putting them ahead of other players that have been sitting there and yada, yada, yada. How do you, as a coach, manage to do that?
Well, in full disclosure, I've never coached in a transfer portal era, but I have thought about it, and I have talked to a lot of coaches about what they're doing. And so, armed with that, I think you got to be. It's like, to me, when you're recruiting guys out of high school, it's not just, well, he's got 5 stars by his name. You got to really know not only how good he is, but does he fit in the locker room? What type of character? And I think you got to do that. First of all, it is very likely or probable that the player from recruiting. Maybe you recruited him. Maybe you got to know him. Maybe you didn't. So if you did or didn't, you've got to really get to know that person like players in recruiting to whether they're likely to be a fit. As you know, they come on a visit, like recruits. And one of the reasons why you have a lot of I always did it, is recruiting coordinator. In fact, you take your team leaders and a lot of key people on your roster, and they would spend time with them. They go out with them, hang out with them, talk with them. And I'd always say, what you didn't have, and you want to have guys that wouldn't just say, "Oh yeah, it's great, coach." Yeah, you want somebody that was comfortable telling you, "Yeah, I don't know about the fit or whatever. He's a little bit more." You can get a feel for him, and I think that's important. I do think that it is potentially a problem that if guys come in, somebody in front may be offended or hurt. I think it comes down to communication. I think if you're honest with people, they may not like what you tell them. But, I sit there and say, all right, look, I need a running back. I just think the guys that I have are not ready or they're not quite as good. And I would call them in and say, look, this is what we're doing. We're looking at a couple of guys in the portal that we think would help. Just, want you to understand, love what you've done here. You've worked hard, all that. But I think we need somebody with a little bit more of this or that, whatever. And I think if you do that, if they don't feel comfortable and they're not willing to buy into that, then maybe it's not the right place for them. So I think that, to me, it's more difficult in this day and age because we have trained young guys to think that, and I'm going to say this, the worst part is not the kids, it's the parents. Yep. It's that tell them, you're this, you're ranked this guy, you're the best, and you're then Uncle Leroy is telling them this, and Cousin Kathy is saying, I heard, and if you're not playing, there's something wrong there. And it's not the world I grew up in, because if I'm not starting, it's because I wasn't good enough. I didn't start. I didn't play on. I wasn't good enough. I could see it. I understood it. I tried to always get better, but I also knew I had limitations, and I was grateful for the role that I did have. I think I think we're away from that now. I think all of them feel like when they arrive on campus that they have arrived. Yeah. That's it. Look at me. I'm here. What are you going to do for me? And the NIL is only going to make that more entitlement, take place. I'm getting this. I'm going to make this money. And then you got the pressure. Now let's throw NIL in. And imagine Mr. NIL donor there saying, I paid this and this guy's not playing. He's not the best. He's not the best guy. I'm not getting my value. I wanted the starting quarterback, and now he's, whatever the case may be. And so I think you got a lot of pressures that you got to deal with. And the answer is it's very difficult to kind of manage all that.
Now, I can tell you that I rooted for Jacob Warren to score a couple more touchdowns than he did this season because he works with us. Yeah, but that didn't happen. I certainly didn't call Josh Heupel and voice my displeasure. But I'm curious, and Caleb, I want you to jump in here too and remind everybody that Big Orange Phillies is on Maynardville Pike, and Big Orange Phillies is a great place in North Knoxville for you to stop in, have a bite, family-friendly billiards, darts, and you're going to love Big Orange Phillies. And Chris, I wonder this with Joe Milton, and you and I talked about it on a separate podcast. How much more accurate can you be? Because when I look at Joe Milton, and I'm not a scout like you, okay, hand to the air, I'm not trying to pretend to be that. but I see a guy that's very flat-footed. I see a guy that I think accuracy is somewhat innate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I just don't see a guy that can go from being a C- guy as far as accuracy to a B+ guy, which I think Hendon Hooker did. Am I right or wrong, or do I not know?
No, I think you're on to a few things that are really pertinent. I think that he's more of an arm thrower. You really throw the football from the bottom up. You throw with your feet. That's where a lot of your power comes from, but it's also a lot of where your accuracy is. So you're right. He is flat-footed. That's a really good observation. And a lot of it is it's difficult to get your feet set. In other words, when he gets his feet set, he can be more accurate. Some guys, the ultimate example is Patrick Mahomes, who throws it from all different platforms, and he throws it accurately. Some guys are platform throwers. They have to have everything perfectly set. Well, that's difficult with pass rushes and movement. So clean pocket, get the ball out quickly, which this offense allows. That helps you a little bit. I think that one of the things you have to do, and you're correct, your throwing motion pretty much is what it's going to be. The way you pick up and throw a rock as a 5-year-old is pretty much how you're going to throw a football for the most part. Now, there's some things mechanically with your height of your elbow and your release point getting it high. Those are things that you can do to improve getting a ball out quickly so that you can get it out on time. Some accuracy issues are timing issues, meaning you're late with the ball. You're late with the read. You're a little bit late releasing it. In other words, you see it, you want to throw it. And, you're not a pitcher on the mound. You can take whatever windup you want on the mound. But in football, you really want to have the ball ready to cocked and loaded and ready to throw. So I think you can do some things mechanically to help you. I think you can definitely do things with your footwork to help you. You definitely could do some things with reads and understanding of coverage so that you can get the ball out quicker and anticipate better. All those things are absolutely important. I think with the deep ball with him, for example, that he overthrows a bunch, is that he doesn't put enough air under it. And I think that's just, to me, I think you can improve some of that. And the way you do it is, to me, you always try, I used to use barrels. You make them throw it in a barrel deep. Because if you throw everything with less arc, you're going to hit the barrel. You're never going to drop it in. I think you can do some of those things. So I think you can, but I think it requires an inordinate amount of work. And if it's not natural, normally it doesn't improve a tremendous amount.
All right, jump in there, Caleb. What do you got?
Yeah, I wanted to actually go back a little bit to the transfer portal talk for a minute because I was kind of thinking, or the NIL deals. I think there is an issue that, thinking about it for the player's sake, how are schools going to weigh, and I don't know how schools can weigh this, how can you stress to kids the importance of, if you are an NFL talent, you don't want to be short-sighted and take the school that offers you the most NIL money. You want to take the school that'll get you to the NFL and have you succeed in the NFL, where, yeah, there may be a $7-8 million deal in college for a guy like Nico. There's a $100 million deal on the table if you get to the NFL. And so how are we going to get 17-year-olds to learn how to weigh that?
I don't know. It's going to be really tough I think it goes back to how they brought up, how they raised, what are their values. We talk about, not all kids are bad. I don't know if you guys have heard the story, but Blake Corum, who was running back for Michigan, and he didn't play this past week. He was injured. But to me, he's had the type of year that probably deserves to be invited to New York. He took all his NIL money and he's used it all for charity. Wow. Buying turkeys for underprivileged families and things like that. there's something I learned a long time in scouting. Money makes you more of what you are. If you've got good values, you're a good person. Obviously, this young man is. He's going to use that money for good. He doesn't have to give it all away. But if you are, it's all about what I want. Nothing wrong with spending money like you want. It's your money. But if everything is, I got to get this, I got to get that, I got more money, it's about me. I think it comes down to the core of what type of person is it. I think it's very dangerous, to answer your question, because I don't think a lot of the core values of some of these players are even formed yet. I don't know. I mean, I don't know when I was 18 years old what I would have done with a ton of money. I really don't. I mean, I don't know how I would have reacted to it. I never had that opportunity, but a lot of it is going to be an expectation of, well, this is, and I think it's great. I don't know that they can manage the money, and I don't think they can manage the expectations. And I think it's going to be difficult. To me, I always go back to college, and this is big time college football, but I still think it's an educational process. I would like to see, and I know a lot of schools are doing it, you can teach, but you can't make them learn, if they don't want to learn. But a lot of schools are implementing like certain classes like money management, how to properly handle a checkbook, how to put a certain percentage away into your savings and stuff like that. Maybe how to invest, and invest for retirement, invest for, whatever. Hey, you might want to have children one day. You want to start. I mean, there's just a million things that obviously, but if you're that type of person that are into that, if you're the type of person that wants to buy every shiny thing, probably not going to handle it very well. I mean, it's their money, can do what they want, but that person is likely, when the money runs out, they're probably looking for more else. Well, guess what? You spent all of your time, not really focusing on the things that you need to do to sustain your ability to make more money into the future, that you kind of blew it. Think about this. What a tremendous opportunity in the day of NIL. If you came in, you took the money, you live comfortably, you can take your girlfriend out on dates, you can do things to have a nice life, decent, whatever. If you're poor, and a lot of them are, can send money back home, do things. If you can do that and you learn how to manage money, you put some ahead, just think of how much of an advantage there is. And if you're smart enough, meaning, that you will do your schoolwork and get a good education, think about how many go to school, have to take out loans, and have to, you're in a situation, get a free education, and you get money on top of that, and then you get out. Maybe you're good enough to play pro ball. Maybe you're not. Even if you are, maybe you play 3-4 years. Look at what a big advantage that you have. You've got whatever amount of money in the bank, saved, invested, whatever. Now you can go and live a life that very few people have a chance coming out of college, ever, unless they're just from a rich family. You can do a lot of good. So I think it goes back to the type of character and what have you. But the other thing too is, how do you learn? I think you're learning. A long time ago, a coach that I knew said, God doesn't make any junk. I don't think people are born bad. I think kind of their environment shapes it. And if you grew up in a bad environment, if you grew up in drug-infested environments and theft and whatever, it's hard to maybe know right from wrong. And then at least growing up, it's kind of how you live. And I think you got to fight through that. And that's why I always tried to study guys' backgrounds. And that's why we use so many psychologists and everything in our NFL work that are a lot smarter at understanding people. I think that you've got to look into a person's character and background. And look, just because you grew up in a bad background doesn't mean you're going to be a bad person. If you got the right type of character, maybe it's a grandmother or an aunt or somebody, a mother, even if it's not your parents, that can maybe help you understand right from wrong. That, everybody around you may be stealing and cheating and doing whatever. But that's not the way. That's not the path. And I think it goes down to that. I think that there's going to be natural jealousies in the locker room about who makes what and who doesn't. But I also think that, that's a part of life too. And what are we teaching them? I mean, when you go get a job and you work for a company, somebody is going to make more money than you. Somebody's going to make less. And what's the way to do it? Are you going to complain and are you going to leave? Well, you can do that, I guess. But, maybe you just got to do a better job in your craft. And I think this is an opportunity to really determine who can you count on in the locker room. If you got guys that are not happy, not comfortable, I think as a school, the way I think I would handle it is I would have it pretty much evenly dispersed with the idea that if you are a quote unquote a more notable person, then you can get extra money on your own. Meaning if you work NIL deals and you can get extra money, well, you know what? Old Joe over there is making a lot more money than you. But you know why? Look at what he's doing. Look at what he's been able to do. He's earned that. If you're the type that wants to sit there and have NIL money handed to you and he's working for it, well, then that tells you that guy's probably not going to work real hard in football either. So to me, I'd like to have, if I did it, I would probably have enough money for everybody to sustain and live comfortably. And then you are all free to do extra stuff. That can make you money. And it's likely the quarterback's going to have a better chance. But you know what? There are linemen that are going out there in a creative way of doing things and what have you. Go out and do it, But, to me, it teaches, if you want to look at a positive, it teaches work. It teaches ingenuity. And I worry a little bit about it if they're spending maybe too much time on that and not enough on school or not enough on football. But you know what? I think there's enough time. I mean, kids are young and, they're going to find a way to do everything plus go out and have fun with their friends. I think there are a lot of good kids that can figure out ways to do it, but we need to help them.
Good stuff, Chris. We certainly appreciate it. We will talk to you soon as always and have a fantastic day.
Hey, and we got playoffs in 2024. How about that? We got one more year of a 14 playoff. How's that?
I'm ready.
I think most people are. So, that came down there last night. So, hey, great to be with you guys. Thanks. Have a great weekend. Talk soon.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Chris Landry of LandryFootball.com. We didn't even have a chance to get to that. And Chris Landry's appearance brought to you in part by our friends at Craft Treats. We'll tell you more about Craft Treats when we get to message board bingo. But also City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. It's about integrity, HVAC with integrity in the Knoxville area. You'll love cityheatingandair.com. And I'll tell you what, this is pretty awesome. Look at my eyes. I can see without glasses or contacts. I had my LASIK by local doctors there in the Knoxville area. And if you've got anyone that is considering LASIK, or you've got maybe a family member or you that needs cataract surgery, it's Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and it's just not close because they are local to Knoxville and they care about you. Listen, anybody can run the laser, but when it comes down to someone that actually cares about you and your eyesight, that's Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Back in 2 minutes. Hang with me. Off the Hook Sports.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Hey folks, Gary Viles here, Viles Automotive on Callahan Drive. I've been selling cars here in East Tennessee for 27 years. In that time, I've come to realize it's not about the car. It's about you, the customer. So I'm here to take care of you just like family. Good credit, bad credit, you name it, we can get you taken care of. If we don't have it, we can find it for you. We go across the country to get any vehicle that you want. And here at Viles Automotive, we don't believe in fake numbers. We just give you great deals. And as always, we want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vasty Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vasty, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Bassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Bassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
This is Steve Ray, and I own the Midnight Oil and Michelin Tire Direct service station here in Ottawa. It's not a fancy place, never has been, but it's a clean place with clean restrooms and good folks who work here. We sell gas and fix cars, nothing glamorous, but we love what we do, and we're going to keep doing it for a long time to come. There's not many real service stations left, and that's a shame. We're the guys just like the guys back in your hometown. We'll fix your tire, change your oil, and put a new set of Michelins on your car. If you want a Twinkie, you'll just have to keep on going. Thanks for the business.
This day in sports history, putting things in perspective, exclusively on Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker.
You're so old. When you were a kid, rainbows were black and white.
And Amanda LaFratta.
New kids on the block just called. They wanted you as a backup dancer.
Got so excited about reading this day in sports history that I forgot to hit the production element leading into it. Caleb Calhoun and Amanda LaFratta. I'm Dave Hooker. We'll talk some hoops for a minute here. And this day in sports history, we go back to December the 1st. The Lady Vols defeated Nebraska 77-58 on a neutral court in Minneapolis. Lisa Webb led the team with 3 of 6 field goals and 3 for 3 for 17 points back in 1984. This sounds like one of those games that Pat Summitt was a part of where she had a sub early and sub often. That happened a lot as she was incredibly ahead of the game. So not surprised. All right, your thoughts on the basketball Vols. I want to hear from the message board. I want to hear from Caleb and Amanda. We weren't expecting that to be much of a contest last night. Caleb, what did you think? Anything stand out? Some of these early season games are really tough to develop much of an opinion on. Oh, you're muted, Caleb.
Sorry, I want to say the spread was 34.5. I took Tennessee to cover. I took the under. That dunk by Toby Owaka in the last 20 seconds. Thank you, bro. Got my money on that. They covered. They scored. They won by 36. So, I appreciate you, Toby. I appreciate you for doing that for me. Thank you.
Yeah, that was now that I think about it. I hadn't thought about that at the time.
Yeah, that last dunk, that was a beautiful cover. I can't tell you how great that was. But I will say that I think the thing is, I think they're doing a lot of this without Josiah Jordan-James, their best, most versatile defender, and because he's been banged up, obviously. And I just got to say that this is impressive the way they're playing. I think the thing that's really starting to show is that we knew about what Santi Vescovi can do, but you're starting to see Julian Phillips kind of start to live up to his 5-star billing. Tyreek Key, talk about transfer portal players that can ball. Tyreek Key is right there with one of them. And I think this team only gets better when Josiah Jordan-James comes back. I will say that Rick Barnes' history, he's a great coach. I'm a fan of Rick Barnes as a coach and a developer of talent. He's not always been the best manager of talent when you talk about experienced guys and plugging in 5-stars. There were a couple of years at Texas, most notably his last year there, where he returned basically everybody, added a 5-star, and then the team regressed a little bit. So Tennessee's in a similar situation this year. Last year it worked out with Kennedy Chandler, but we're going to have to see where it goes with them as the season progresses. They're looking really good now. But when Josiah Jordan-James comes back, when Uros Plavsic is, assuming he's fully healthy, I know he's relatively healthy, but he still is only playing 15 to 20 minutes a night. I don't even think he played 15 last night. We're going to have to see how Barnes manages those guys.
I want to play a new game because one of the many things I love about Amanda LaFratta is she'll call me on bull stuff. So she'll say, no, Dave. And I love that. Okay. So a new game that just popped into my head. We'll have a production element next week about it. Bull or believe. Okay. So is it bull or do you believe it? All right. So I want to talk Lane Kiffin and what went down with him not getting the Auburn job, or not accepting the Auburn job, or not being offered the Auburn job. So, bull or believe, I'm going to ask you guys a series of questions about what I have been told about the Lane Kiffin situation. I was told, first of all, that Lane was ready to accept the job, and let's start with that. That Lane was ready to accept the job. Bull or believe?
I did believe it. I think it's bull now, though.
Okay, you're taking both. Caleb?
I'm not hedging. I believe it. I think once he did that fake news tweet last week, I think he knew he wasn't getting the job by that point. But I do think he was ready to accept it before then.
Okay, I'm going to believe. I'll believe that one. Something I was told yesterday. His kids ultimately weren't the ones. They were the ones that didn't want to go. They were the deciding factor. They wanted to stay in Oxford. Bull or believe?
I think that's bull. I think this comes down. I mean, honestly, I think that this comes down to Auburn. I think, in my opinion, I think Kiffin turned it down, but I think it's more along the lines of because of the way that things worked in Auburn. Because I can't believe that a school would rather hire Hugh Freeze with the background that he has, and if they've done their due diligence on Hugh Freeze, all of the allegations out there. I don't think that would have been their first choice.
Please hit the like button. And Caleb, bull or believe?
I think it's bull because don't his kids live with his mom out in California?
Knox lives with him.
Knox lives with him. Okay. All right. So I think it's bull. Amanda, you kind of got me to your side. First one's bull too. I think Lane turned it down. I'm still baffled that Auburn hired Hugh Freeze. And it's not the prostitution scandal. I think the prostitution scandal covers up for how much of a liar he is in so many other ways. I mean, I'm going the first one's bull too. Amanda's converted me.
No, it's more the underage thing is my main concern with.
Well, yeah, just so people know, there's an article out there, and this went around in Memphis a lot during this time. He was coaching at Briarcrest when I was there, and there was an article that some of the girls complained that when they weren't in uniform, he would make them take their shirts off and sit and wait for their parents in his office for their parents to bring them the actual proper uniform and outfit.
Are we talking about hostesses, or what are we talking about?
No, Hugh Freeze students. When he was a high school coach at Briarcrest, female students at the school, if their uniform wasn't proper attire, he would bring them to his office and make them take off what they were wearing and sit.
That actually reported, Caleb?
Yes. I can pull up the article right now.
Oh, wow, that would have eliminated him right there.
And not to mention him trying to defame Houston Nutt and just, lie to players so he could keep them signed after. Yes. The prostitution scandal is the least scandalous thing he did. So
which sounds crazy. Okay, bull or believe? The social media played into it. I was told that both coaches had to turn over their social media accounts to the schools. I don't know if that means pre-existing DMs. Okay, I can't tell you that, but that essentially they were going to neuter Lane in terms of his twittering. Bull or believe?
I believe that because they did put that in Hugh Freeze's contract that he had to turn over his Twitter and social media accounts to Auburn. Okay. So I do believe that Auburn is that kind of crazy place where that seems like that's a likely thing. And I don't know if that necessarily played into Kiffin's decision.
Bull or believe within that case? Caleb?
Can you say it one more time? Sorry.
Bull or believe that social media factored into the hiring of Hugh Freeze because they demanded that Hugh Freeze turn over his social media accounts. And we know that Lane Kiffin loves to tweet.
I'm going to say bull because Auburn, agree or disagree, Auburn doesn't really care what Bruce Pearl puts out there on social media. And So I don't think they would care on the football front either.
I'm going to say believe on that one. I think it was a factor. I don't know how big of a factor. Okay. So lastly, Buller believe Lane Kiffin will be the head coach at Ole Miss in 2024.
2024. I don't think he will. I think he's looking for an opportunity to move along. I don't think Auburn was the right opportunity. And I think because Kiffin, I think a desperate person had to go to Auburn because they require so much control there of that program that I don't think that Kiffin was that right fit. I don't think he would have gone after, maybe at first, yes, it was appealing. Then after digging into everything, I think he saw that and was like, better not. Because there's another opportunity that's going to come along where he has more free reign than Auburn's willing to give him. So I think, but with that, he will not be coaching at Ole Miss in 2024. I think they have him for another year. Another opportunity will arise. Maybe, who knows, Ohio State. I could see Kiffin going there if Ryan Day doesn't get it done because apparently they have big problems with him. So,
Buller believe on that, Caleb?
All right, no pun intended. I'm very bullish on the Bulls today, but because I'm all Bulls, but I'm with Amanda. I'm still a Bull because I agree. I think there might be some jobs opening up. I think Texas A&M might have an opening next year. Just saying. We get Jimbo Fisher's buyout, but I mean, how long can the buyout keep you from moving on? So Texas A&M might open up. Mike Norvell had a decent year this year. Can he repeat that at Florida State next year? That's a question. Amanda's right. Ryan Day at Ohio State. There might be some better jobs open up next year.
Well, and I know that Lane wants the Florida job. It's not going to come open after next year, but Billy Napier, I don't believe is anything special, unlike we heard at SEC Media Days repeatedly. So that could come open after 2024. I think there's a real possibility there. All right, so Buller believe Lane Kiffin would have been this word is important, much better hire than Hugh Freeze.
Believe, hands down, believe. I think anybody at this moment would have been a better hire than Hugh Freeze.
Believe. I agree. I can't stress just how I can't believe the SEC let this happen because I had heard reports that Greg Sankey was basically reading the riot act to athletic directors a couple of years ago. I don't know how confirmed this is, that he was basically saying, don't let him back in the conference. And I know he didn't want him, and I think Auburn just gave a giant middle finger to the entire SEC. And
I believe Lane Kiffin would have been a much better hire because he would have exploded in the transfer portal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they would be an SEC West contender. Now, I'm not going to say they're going to win it next year, but they would have been a contender as early as next year because of the transfer portal. You don't have to build it up anymore. All right. Last Buller believe. The whole thing with the television reporter reporting that he was going to accept the Auburn job on Friday was manufactured news via a Lane Kiffin leak to help him either get the Auburn job or get a contract extension and raise at Ole Miss. Bull or believe?
That's really far-fetched. I mean, I'm just going to say bull on that because it's super far-fetched. There's no kind of evidence that that's the case.
Here's why I think it is true. Lane, he doth that protest too much. He got in this Twitter war with this guy. He talked about the meeting. He talked about how it took away from the preparations of the Egg Bowl. He went on and on for 3 or 4 minutes in the press conference after the Egg Bowl. I think that was orchestrated. I think that was leaked by somebody, maybe not Lane specifically, maybe Jimmy Sexton, or someone leaked that to that reporter. And I will bet you, and we'll know if I'm right or wrong, within 2 months, that reporter will have a major break in a news story at Ole Miss. And that was the shake agreement on you put this out there to help me get a raise or get the Auburn job, whichever the case may be, and you're going to have a major news break story in the next couple of months.
This is House of Cards, that Kevin Spacey, Zoe Barnes like moment. Sorry, but I'm going to go Bull because I can't. I get it, but I can't. Lane Kiffin cost his team if he did that. Ole Miss lost at Mississippi State because of that report. I firmly believe that. I took Ole Miss money line last week, best money I ever dropped. I put a lot of money on it. I'm sorry, I took Mississippi State money line, excuse me, and put a lot of money on it. Made a bank because of all the distractions. And I get Ole Miss wasn't playing for anything, but just for the purposes of the portal and recruiting, 9-3 looks a heck of a lot better than 8-4.
Yeah. I agree with that too. I don't know if he would necessarily have done that to his team. Lane's always seemed like a kind of a player person. I don't think he would have done that to his players just to get a contract extension. He would have gotten that contract extension no matter what because Auburn was clearly interested. And so were a lot of different people. So I think he would have gotten his contract extension. He didn't have to go that far. I think it made him mad. I mean, honestly, I think he was pissed off about the guy coming out and saying something, his team having to read that, he having to address it. So that's what I believe.
I'm going to say I believe it. I'm going to say I believe that it was leaked to give him leverage.
Conspiracy theory hooker.
Mm-hmm.
I have reason in my history to believe that. But I'm just going to leave it at that. It's time for Message Board Bingo. It's brought to you by Craft Treats. Craft Treats has the fantastic chill pills that'll help with your dog's arthritis. It'll help with your dog's anxiety, and it will also help with your dog's digestive issues. And Craft Treats, you can go to crafttreats.com with the chill pills or any of their fine products that are all homemade, all with natural ingredients, and they're all good for your pet. And use the code OFFTHEHOOK. That's off the hook and get 20% off. So if you don't win, go to crafttreats.com, use the promo code OFFTHEHOOK, get 20% off. Message board bingo is now.
The issue isn't quitting on the team. Fans everywhere just don't believe in him, our coach. He has proven to be a fraud. He's weak, soft, scared, and his teams play undisciplined and with poor tactics and game management. His teams fold and break down due to it. The team actually quit in the game.
So this would be this past weekend, a team that actually quit in the game. So Caleb's on the spot. Here's the way it works. Amanda reads that post from a message board. If you can name the team that message board post was made on, then you are going to win a prize via Craft Treats, a Craft Treats gift certificate. So you got about 10 seconds. Do you want to give any hints? Because we don't have any takers right now. I think it's so hard.
Yeah, it is not an SEC team.
It is not an SEC team. All right, so you got a few seconds. Orange Blood saying too many high school coaches lean on a quarterback's athleticism and don't teach them the pass read skills, and it hinders their growth. Pro, a couple of other thoughts. Also, Tennessee Junior saying will Freeze give the UF Perv a shot at getting his team. Seems a whole lot of bleeped up to hire Hugh Freeze, but if they allow that garbage, they need to bring public. Anyway, Vanderbilt is a guess by Chris.
That's it. That's an SEC team,
right? Ole Miss is a guess by Eric.
It's not an SEC team.
Ohio State or Oklahoma State? I can't tell.
Ohio State. Whoever guessed Ohio State. That is correct.
Okay, Eric. So here's my email. You win, and we will take care of you. And you will win a gift certificate to Craft Treats. So everybody have a fantastic day. We'll be back with you tomorrow. We'll have Coach Lance join us. Visit with Jonathan Crompton as well. We'll get a breakdown of the championship weekend. So we've got a lot going on for Amanda LaFratta and Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a